Well, good evening, Placerville. Lovely to see all of you in our audience tonight, and want to extend a warm welcome to the folks watching at home. Today is June 26, 2018. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Placerville City Council. At this time, would you please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's always a great way to start off. All right, when we have the roll call, please, Regina.
Vice Mayor Acuna.
Here.
Councilmember Borelli.
Here.
Councilmember Clarici.
Here.
Mayor Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here. All right. Brief comments by City Council. I will start to my right, Mayor Acuna.
Oh.
Vice Mayor Acuna.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to everybody. I've got several things, three fun ones, and a couple that I want to just let folks know that I'm working on a couple of issues in town. This past Saturday, for one of the fun ones, I was never felt safer in my life than I did with Coffee with a Cop on Saturday morning at Cup of Coffee and More on Main Street. I believe I was outnumbered 7-1. Some of the officers came in on their days off. It was really very nice of them to come in. The crew that was on duty that day, as well as a couple other officers and some of those folks that were going to be involved in the Brew Fest. So some of our officers had a long day ahead of them, but they put in their time and were able to talk with a number of the members of the community. So thank you to all the officers and to the chief for supporting that. And I got a little sticker too, Coffee with a Cop. Huh?
You're official.
I'm official. So thanks for that. Another fun one is reminding everybody that this Thursday, Goldbug Park is co-hosting with the City the Chamber Mixer.
Fun.
I believe that starts at
5:30?
5:30-ish. So seems like the weather ought to be pretty nice, so if somebody likes to go by, please come by Goldbug and enjoy the festivities. Also, speaking of Goldbug, remind everybody that tickets are still available for Murder at the Goldbug Mine. And that's going to be on Saturday, July 14th, $45 per person. Starts at 4:30. The food this year is being catered by the Smith Flat House. John Sanders is working graciously with the committee, so I'm sure the food's going to be delicious. And I believe Moore's will be there with their bar operation also. So it's really a great cause. You can get your tickets at two places, Placerville News on Main Street or the El Dorado County Chamber right across the street from us here on Upper Main. A couple other brief announcements that I would like to make is, just so everybody knows, it's long been a goal, and it was reminded earlier this year. I noticed that the Chamber had awarded PG&E the Corporate Citizen of the Year Award. And I thought, my, it was time for me to bring a long overdue request to them. And I have met with a couple of folks from PG&E, and this is in regards to a piece of property that most people probably don't know they even own, but it's part of the Save Mart parking lot, and it's a old driveway and employee parking lot that also butts up against the Valero property. Well, if you think of the investment that the Valero property just did, they completely remodeled the station. We've got over a $2 million new bridge on Blair's Lane, and I would bet it was probably 15 years ago when PG&E last did any maintenance on the property that they own, and sadly it shows. So I'm very pleased to say that I'm working with Brendan Sanders from PG&E and Paul Hill. They've been very responsive. They're looking at making some significant improvements to the condition of that site, which will help our very important merchant and Save Mart. And I think it also respects the investment that Valero has recently made on Broadway. So I will continue to work with them and make sure we can move that corporate giant to a positive success story. And the other thing is when I was doing a little field work a couple of weekends ago, I happened to drive down Reservoir Street. And I sent this issue on this Monday to our city manager and also to Brandon McKay, our fire marshal. We often hear that this podium, folks that are concerned about our historic resources, and for at least the second year in a row, I can say that there is a tremendous fire hazard that currently exists because private property owners have not done their part. And we could lose our historic Main Street in a blink of an eye through an errant cigarette or somebody having a party in the wrong place, the trespassers, what have you. So I want to let folks know that I am working with Cleve, and we will work with County Fire to get that addressed. And please, you have to think outside of the box sometimes. And again, can you imagine the outcry if something was to occur and it had not been addressed? So I look forward to getting that resolved also. So thank you and everyone for the time.
All right, thank you so much. Councilmember Borelli.
Yes, well, my information is that, once again, I participated in the Chamber of Commerce, El Dorado Chamber, and we combined with Folsom Chamber of Commerce, and I went on their mission study program, and this year it was Boise, Idaho, and McCall, and very, very informative. And I have to tell you, Mark, that Brandon Sanders was on that same trip.
That's right.
And we did talk about your project.
Good.
And he told me that he had met with you and Wendy, and yeah, so small world. Anyway, it was a very successful trip, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to share some of the things that they do. I know they outnumber us greatly in numbers and money and everything else, but McCall is reminded me of Lake Tahoe. It's a resort town, and visited their state park, and in both cases we had the mayor talk to us, and it was another, like I say, the folks just put together a great program, and I wish everybody could go. It's just really a great trip. So.
Well, thank you for representing
Thank
us
you.
on that. Appreciate it very much. Councilmember Clarici.
Yes, this isn't anything that I'm doing or going to do, but I want to just say my lovely bride and I participated once again in Brewfest, pouring a number of delightful things. Brews and ciders, and just was a great day, and the Main Street just looked great, and it was very buzzy with lots of people, and I understand things went very well from a financial standpoint. So this year was a little different because they actually brought in a company that actually puts these things on rather than the PDA trying to run it themselves, and it went off very well. So it just shows if you want to put a lot of people on Main Street, serve them beer. And anyway, it was great, and I ran into a bunch of people from the city, and Placerville's Finest was out there making sure, and they weren't
drinking beer.
Incidences. So it was all just very good, and it just showed off the town so well, and a lot of fun. Serving beer to people is actually quite amusing. So anyway, that was good.
Oh, thanks so much.
Sure.
Councilmember Wilkins. All right, and
There was one other thing.
Okay, I
I'm sorry.
had one other thing.
The other
that
thing
when
too
you
is I
get
would
through-
like to also mention that a week ago on Wednesday, Andrew and myself and Dennis, Thomas, and Cleve went and did something that we've been wanting to do for a little while. It started last year when a young man in town decided that he was put on this Fringe Festival, which is a series of performances, small things. It turned out really great, and I had suggested using old City Hall, the part that it doesn't have anything going on in it, but the inside of it was kind of rough, and there's just bits and pieces of the City Hall still left there. We couldn't do anything last year, but we really wanted to jump on doing something this year. So we went in on Wednesday and we took out all the old drop ceiling and the fluorescent lights and a lot of the old duct work, and there was just wires and stuff that don't do anything anymore, and we did not electrocute ourselves, which was really good. But we really cleared up the space, and you can start to see some potential in there for doing performances. I know the Arts Council is also interested in doing some exhibits. Obviously, they cannot be occupied full-time because there's a number of issues with that side of the building, but it was a lot of fun, and we got done fairly quickly, and thank you, Dennis. He was late, so he bought us lunch, and that was nice, too. So Andrew was there, and he's in the audience, and I want to thank him specifically, and Cleve, too. Rolled up our sleeves, and it was warm. But we got a lot of work done, and we're hoping that'll make it usable for some performances in the fall, and then some other activities. There's a lot of potential in that old building. So anyway, I just also wanted to mention that.
That's all right.
nice to see life coming back to that building. So thank you for your efforts on that. Appreciate it. Yes,
I
Tony.
have one more thank you, and maybe this is, and I'm sorry if I'm
No, go right
Highway 50.
Great.
I left on a Wednesday and came back on a Sunday, and I couldn't. It was all done.
Is it awesome or what?
Yeah, oh
Yeah.
my gosh! And what a welcome into Placerville. Thank you, Caltrans.
Awesome. And Last thing is July 4th. Can't believe it's almost 4th of July. So the annual fireworks at the fairgrounds. Doors open at 4 p.m. And they say, bring your propane barbecues and your hot dogs and grill. There's going to be carnival activities this year, as well as live music and kids activities. So bring the kids, bring your food, and enjoy El Dorado County's finest in the heart of our city. So fireworks start after dark, of course. So that's very exciting. And the last thing is I had the privilege of being on Studio Sacramento last Friday night. And they asked me to come talk about the challenges with homelessness in a rural community. And so it was a live broadcast, which meant there were no edits, which was a little nerve-wracking, but it was a joy to talk about my favorite subject, which was Placerville, and was also able to highlight what makes our city great and why folks should come visit. And it was fun to highlight our
I heard
city.
you did a great job.
Well, thank you. It was really fun. So, all right, with that, Mr. Yule, I've heard you have a fantastic video for us.
I think so. Thank you, Madam Mayor. From time to time, we're asked, what are you doing to better promote the city's aquatic centers, programs, and services? So tonight, I invited our aquatic supervisor, Carissa Lombardi, to share with us a new promotional video that was produced and edited by members of our aquatics team. And it's pretty amazing what these young people can do. So with that, I'll have Carissa come to the mic and try to figure out our sophisticated sound system here.
Carissa, we are delighted to have you here. And who do you have with you?
This is my daughter, Piper.
Oh, darling.
So
Hi, Piper.
So we have two young men who are very talented on our staff who are getting into doing videos. And I was trying to rack my brain. If we're trying to get my age into the aquatic center to bring their kids for swim lessons, what's the best way to reach them? And we realize it's through social media, and videos are such a great way of giving kind of a little clip of who we are and how safe our facility is and how fun it is. So we, through one of our trainings, invited some people out to do a free swim lesson, and we had them sign waivers, and we were able to get some really good videos. So I hope you guys enjoy it.
Oh, can't wait to see it. Wow, that is really terrific. And that was all done with our own in-house young talent.
It was, yes.
That is remarkable. It's such an amazing asset in the middle of our city. And I happened to be there last Wednesday and took my grandson. There were over 150 kids swimming in the pool. It was so much fun to see. I learned to swim in the pool. My daughters learned to swim with our city instructors, and it's an amazing asset in the middle of our city. So thank you for helping us highlight that.
Thank you.
That is absolutely fantastic, and I want you guys to do one for Main Street.
Oh, they are phenomenal. I think they're in
What
process
are-
of doing one for Goldbug right now.
Goldbug
Goldbug
Park
would
was
be
going to be my
fabulous.
second.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
It's-
definitely contact them. They have their own business and they're doing great.
Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, if we could, that would be awesome, because
Yep.
this really just sets off the aquatic center.
Yep, it's
Makes you
fun.
want to go. It's upbeat. It
Yep.
does all those things.
Definitely.
Fantastic. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Carissa, for coming
Carissa,
by.
you.
Bringing
if they
Piper.
wanted to share this video, how could they access it?
Yeah, so it's on our, we have an aquatics Facebook page. So the Placerville Aquatic Center has its own page. And it's also, we're working on getting it on the city website
Yeah.
under the aquatics as well. But
Good, yeah.
you can get it through the aquatics page.
Okay,
All right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming
Thank
tonight,
you.
Carissa. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
That was great. Love it. Love it. Closed session report. City Attorney Driscoll, do we have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor Thomas. No, we don't. The council did not take reportable action tonight.
All right, thank you. Adoption of the agenda. Any changes by council?
Move for adoption.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, ceremonial matters, none. Public comment. This portion of the meeting is yours. Anyone wishing to address the council on any matter that is not on our agenda, we'd love to hear from you. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and follow the golden rule. First of all, do we have any written communication?
None tonight.
I did receive a
You had
letter
one
from the Heritage Association on the Clay Street project, which I have referred to staff today. So, all right. So with that, the mic is now open to you. Hello, Andrew.
Andrew Vonderschmidt, El Dorado Arts Council. I'm just coming to do a public comment and a preemptive strike, as it were. We're going to be coming before the City Council on July 11th to re-present our public health mural project with the El Dorado County Health and Human Services Agency. Just wanted to talk about how we, since March 13th, have compiled, triaged, ranked, and completely went through all of the comments that we received via social media here at the city council meeting, and had meetings, personal meetings with a lot of passionate public individuals here in Placerville to find out what they wanted to see in the mural, while we could still communicate the ideas that the public health wants to communicate. We brought all of those ideas back to our artist, Orrin Miller, who worked tirelessly to put all of those ideas in there, kind of keep the same idea, but address what we were looking for to represent the community of Placerville, the heritage of Placerville, the history of Placerville, and what makes it kind of special. So we're really proud of what we have so far, and as soon as we have our final design, which will happen within days, we're going to push it out via social media. We're going to push it out as a press release. We're going to get it out to the public before we come before the city council, so everybody has a chance to see it. And I personally will put a printed copy of it on each seat here before we start the city council meeting in July, so that everybody has a chance to see it and it won't be a shock. And I am pretty confident that people will like what we've done, and we still get to convey the messages that we plan to convey. That's all I have to say. I did submit a written comment as well, so that is in public comment or public records. Thank you very much for your time.
So Andrew and Kristen, on behalf of the City Council, thank you for your efforts. We look forward to welcoming you on July 11th and can't wait to see it. So.
It's actually July 10th. Is
Oh,
the
July
correct
10th.
date, just so you
Okay,
know.
July 10th. We won't be here on July 11th.
It's a two-day meeting.
That's wonderful. Can't wait to see it. Thank you for all your efforts. That's exciting. Anyone else? All right, we'll close public comment and come back on July 10th and we'll talk murals. Love it. All right, consent calendar. This all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call. Does any member of the council wish to pull an item?
No, ma'am.
All right. Does any member of the public wish to comment on an item on our consent calendar? No? All right. I'll bring that back to council for a
I
motion.
will move.
Second?
All right. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Acuna,
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli,
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici,
Aye.
Mayor Thomas,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, with that, we are on item 11.1 on public hearings. Adopt a resolution approving the proposed budget, 2018-2019, and capital improvement program budget. Mr. Warren, we are on the tail end of this
Yes,
long
ma'am.
process.
Good evening, Mayor Thomas and council members. Over the past 6 months, your budget team, which is comprised of all department heads and city manager, has collectively developed both the operating budget and CIP budget in a manner that aligns with the city council's established fiscal policies and maintains essential program delivery to the greatest extent possible. As part of the budget development process, the city council held 2 budget workshops on May 16th and June 6th of this year. An initial budget open hearing was held on June 12th. 2 Measure H, Measure L sales tax committee meetings were held on April 19th and May 17th of this year to discuss the potential street, sewer system, and water system projects that should be constructed over the next 5 years. The proposed CIP budget includes the new street, sewer, and water projects recommended by the committee. Both the proposed operating budget and CIP budget include essentially the same expenditure assumptions as what was discussed at your open hearing on June 12th. The proposed operating budget is balanced and totals $19,526,190, of which $9,025,661 is for general fund purposes. The operating budget reflects a $246,000 increase, or 1.28% increase. The proposed CIP budget totals $1,471,206 and includes 17 projects from replacing the roof at Old City Hall to paving and repairing several city streets, including Spring Street from Coloma Road to Bedford Avenue. The budget is a living document that can be revised at any time, and staff, as a matter of fact, plans on returning to the City Council in the coming months with recommendations for a little over $1.5 million in additional Measure H, Measure L funding for existing water, sewer, and street projects. We will also continue to explore ways for funding the 2 trail repair projects that were discussed at the 2 budget workshops and provide funding options for that. As directed by council, staff will prepare a comprehensive equipment replacement program and return to the council this fall with funding options for your consideration. I would like to publicly thank the budget team, the city council, for once again balancing this year's budget. It is a responsible plan for operating the city over the next 12 months and an investment in the future. I also want to thank Rebecca Neves and Rick Ferreira and the Measure H, Measure L Sales Tax Committee for their help in developing the proposed CIP budget. And with that, I respectfully request that you adopt both the operating budget and CIP budget for 2018-2019.
Thank you, Dave. And
Thank you.
first of all, I'd like to, I'm sure I echo the entire council's thanks to you, Dave, for your diligent work on this, and each and every department head and everyone that was involved in this budget. It is no small task, and this marks a end of a lot of work, and yet there's more work to be done, and so we really appreciate you getting us to this point. I'd also like to thank our city manager, Cleve Morris, for the excellent recap letter that is in tonight's budget. I just thought that was excellent. You laid out everything so clearly. It's so comprehensive, and Dave, these documents are just terrific. I know I keep these throughout the year, and I'm amazed at how often I refer to them, both in answering constituent questions and even my own reference. So they're great documents. And the resolution, I thought, was fantastic. I loved the recaps that you had in the resolution, where it just clearly laid out the operating revenues and the CIP expenditures, just a really brief snapshot of what this is all about. So really, user-friendly document. So, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, council member questions at this point? Yes, council member Wilkins.
I'm sorry, I do. Okay, for Dave Warren. This is because I've had questions. Here, we are assuming $120,000 more. Excuse me. based on SB1 passing. That is like now, in a couple days ago. We're assuming that we're going to have that, and I see that it's about $120,000. What's going to happen? What's our plan?
Well, that's a good question, and I can tell you that the League of California Cities has recommended that the cities go ahead and plan for that revenue, even though there may be opposition. There would probably be a lawsuit if that in fact went on the ballot and it passed a repeal. So there would be a delay in kind of unwinding of that those funding sources. But I feel confident that if something were to happen, say if SB1 next year was repealed, that we could find ways of funding those projects in other ways.
Okay, I know we have Measure Alva, which is great, but I'm looking at 120,000.
Yeah.
I want that too.
It's very
Good
important.
question.
Not to take a position, but
Good question.
okay.
Can I add to that, Councilmember Wilkins? Actually, we got notification today, actually, that it did qualify for the ballot. So it is will be on the November ballot.
Yes.
The dollar amount that we actually have is about 180,000 each year, right, Dave? We're projecting right
But
now.
if it fails, I mean,
If it fails, we'll have to review that at that time. We won't spend that 180,000 between now and November.
Okay.
There may be a little bit spent, but we'll be receiving some. We receive those every month. We get a little bit, Dave, is that correct? Or
About 1/12 each month.
okay.
approximately.
So as we get it, we can spend it. We won't have to. At least my understanding is we won't have to return what we've spent.
That's good.
But-
That's good.
Yeah.
That's what I heard too.
But we won't spend more than what we receive up through November.
But we will spend it, so we don't have to.
Probably, yeah.
You may have a project or two.
So,
Great.
okay.
Anything else, Councilmember
No,
Wilkins?
thank you.
Great question. Councilmember Clarici?
Not right now.
Okay. Councilmember Borrelli?
Not right now.
Vice Mayor Kuna?
We were figuring out how much we get a month over here for SB. Because I share Councilmember Wilkins' concerns too, that has qualified, and there's I think we are approaching it very wisely, being prepared to have it gone. I mean, just to given the public sentiment, I totally understand it. Unless you have a lot of time to delve into politics and understand that it's a lot of money at the pump, whichever pump you're pumping, diesel or gasoline. I would just like to echo the mayor's thoughts and comments regarding the preparation of the budget. I want to take this opportunity to thank Dave and Cleve for their leadership in bringing in a very difficult balanced budget. And then I'd like to thank the department heads, the chief, and every staff member that I know has assisted you guys in the background as the questions came up, not only in the preparation of the initial budget, but also the trimming that had to take place and finding the constructive ways to do that. And I know that those same folks supported one another and supported across departments and across floors and across parts of the city to make sure that we're going to be able to provide our services to our citizens. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it's about, is keeping them safe and providing the services that they deserve and expect. And the balanced budget will also serve as a directing tool. I know I was one that spoke at length at the last meeting about the discussions we had during the workshop about a one-time review for addressing deferred maintenance and equipment needs, whether it be a roof or a series of vehicles or necessary equipment. And I believe there's consensus in the council that needs to be looked at very carefully. This budget document will again serve as a direction and a basis to develop that. And I have been encouraging all of our leaders, or department leaders, to be thinking outside the box and think creatively for ways to address, whether it's police cars or dump trucks or computer programs or roofs, $60,000 or $70,000 or $100,000 roofs. This building is in dire need of an interior remodel. I still owe Patty tour of the men's restroom. But it's, it's a public facility that serves a lot of functions, and it's just one
He
example
wants
of
to show me how bad it is.
how we need to find a way. And so I again thank everybody for their work, and I look forward to getting answers as soon as we can to addressing these things, because at the end of the year other things are always coming up and what have you, so we need to start on it as soon as we can. And I think Cleve has already been doing a lot of work behind the scenes, so I look forward to seeing what that is. And I would just like to stress that for myself, I see it as a at this time anyway, I would say a one-time function that we will look at. The list may spread out over years, but it's a time where we just need to get caught up.
You mean approving it?
Yeah, with this additional, and it may come from reserves. I mean, Dave may find some creative financing out there, and that's great. But the bottom line is that we'll be searching for those answers to lift ourselves up, so that we'll be able to be competitive and delivering services. So, thank you, and I look forward to approving this.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing on this item. Would anyone like to speak to our budget? Come on down. Good evening.
Good evening. Sue Rodman, resident of Placerville, and participant in the budget workshops, and I think this is the third year in a row that I have participated. And I know that there has been an awful lot of work by everybody going into it. And there are a few things that I really hope that we can find enough savings to do. And one of those is the gutters over the place where all of our officers who risk their lives daily for us need to have, so that they don't get drenched in the rain every year. And I am even going so far as to say I had the Divide Seamless Gutters come out and look at it, and they're supposed to give me an estimate of what it would cost. So maybe it's not a $5,000 job, and I am actually willing to make a contribution to get that started. If the city can find the other half or 2/3 of it to do, I am willing to put in some of my own savings to get that done, so that we can show our officers that we really do care about them and we really do respect the work that they do. And most of the other things that need to be done are so far above my budget that that's apparently are above the city's budget too. But that was one I thought, if we can find $5,000 for this and $5,000 for that, maybe sometime during this year we can make enough savings that we can find enough to do that gutter.
Wow.
So, but I do think everybody has done an amazing job. I was very disappointed that the funds wouldn't cover some of the things that I think we really need to do, and I think Councilmember Acuna has a good idea. We need to look at some of these things while we do have some reserves. Maybe we need to catch up on some of those things that, like the park and ride building that right now looks like it belongs to the slums. It doesn't look like an entry to Placerville, and it is one of the entry points to Placerville. That's one of the things people see when they come. So instead of welcome to Old Hangtown, it says welcome to the project slums. So I think that, we need to do some spiffing up in some places. And I haven't seen the men's restroom, but
Join Mark's tour.
Get on the tour.
You can join the
I'll
tour.
put you on the list.
Thank you for your gracious offer. My goodness, we look forward to looking at that. Really appreciate it. Anyone else? Good evening.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor, Chief Ortega. My question was, I know last time when we heard you guys speak, what Chief Ortega had asked for 6 cars and got 3. I'm just wondering what the budget on what one car costs the city annually, if that's something you guys know or something.
It was about 45,000. About 45,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Sue, on your thing, if you let me know, we'll make a contribution as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kelly. My goodness. Wow. I love this community. I love this community. Anyone else? All right. Well, at this point, I will close the public hearing. Thank you so much for your gracious comments and offers to assist this fine fair city. Any other council questions or concerns, comments? All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All right. We're talking money, so let's
And lots of
let's
it.
get a roll call on this.
Vice Mayor Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Budget is passed. Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Good
My
work.
goodness. Fantastic. Although, as Dave said, it's a fluid document, and we look forward to seeing that come back to us. All right. Item 12.2, adopt a resolution establishing the appropriations limit, GAN limit, for fiscal year 2017-2018. So, Mr. Warren, this is a very routine item before us.
Yes, it is. So this is something you take action annually on. And Section 7910 of the California Government Code requires each local government agency to establish an appropriation limit or GAN limit by resolution. Each year, the city is required to adjust its GAN limit by both the prior year per capita personal income increment and prior year change in population. The change in per capita personal income was actually 3.69%, and the change in population was 0.6%. Based on these factors, the fiscal year 17-18 GAN limit is calculated to be $22,111,466. The general fund proceed revenue subject to the GAN limit is $6,453,337, leaving $15,658,129 of unused appropriation limits. So once again, Placerville is well within its GAN limit. And with that, we request the council to adopt the resolution establishing the GAN limit as stated.
So let me break this down, because I didn't understand this till I got on the council. So we can tax ourselves up to $22 million and receive $22 million worth of tax proceeds.
That's correct.
So, which this is in place to make sure jurisdictions don't overtax their citizens. But our tax proceeds are $6.4 million. So we could tax ourselves $15 million more.
If
I
you
mean,
wanted
can you
to,
imagine
yes.
the outcry? So I think
Let's
this-
work on that.
But I just think this shows that we have a very conservative, fiscally responsible city. And I think this speaks very well to that fact. So, any other comments or questions by council?
It explains it very well.
I never
right.
thought of it that way.
Yeah, no, I thought that's unique in all the years I've done this.
All right. I will open the public hearing on this item. Does anyone, member of the public, wish to tax ourselves $15 million more? With that, I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for action.
I will move for approval of the
Second.
item.
All right. Roll call, please. Is it a roll call vote? Yeah.
Money.
It's money.
Vice Mayor Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
All right, great. Item 12.1, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into an agreement with HDL companies to provide business attraction services for select businesses. And I understand HDL is in the house tonight, so welcome. We're delighted you're here. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, in last year's budget, we set aside an amount to contract with HDL to assist us with some economic development services, business attraction services. Attached to your agenda tonight, you have two documents. One is that was prepared as a result of that, a program that they have called Econ Solutions. You have the Insight Analysis, which is a pretty thorough document outlining potential areas of growth that we could see in economic development. And then the final document, and the one we're referring to more tonight, is what's called the Void Analysis. It's a single page that shows where we are losing tax revenue outside the city and the potential to attract businesses to take care of that. We ran this through our Economic Advisory Committee a couple of meetings ago, actually, and had them give us a recommendation in looking at the businesses on the void analysis, perhaps businesses that we would like to pursue and try to attract and see if they were interested in coming to Placerville and how we might convince them to come here. So you have that entire report. There's approximately, what are there, about 20 different businesses on there or more. And the Economic Advisory Committee broke that down to 2 areas. They looked at a priority of 4 businesses, and then they had a secondary list of 4 more businesses that they felt were the most appropriate for us to pursue in the city of Placerville. And you have those businesses listed in the staff report. I'll name them quickly. And these are all from that void analysis list that were recommended by HDL. Smart and Final, Burlington Coat Factory, Wingstop, DSW Shoe. Those are the highest priority that they looked at. And then the second tier was Dunkin' Donuts, Five Guys, which is basically a hamburger restaurant, I understand, Panera Bread, and El Pollo Loco. If I was Spanish, I could say that better, but El Pollo.
I think you did great.
El Pollo Loco. How's that? Okay. Anyway, so I've been working with Mr. Barry Foster, who is in our audience tonight. We were fortunate. He was up this way in Northern California for this meeting and asked if he could come and attend, and I invited him to come up. HDL has a program where they will go out and do the business attraction services for the city, and how they are paid is if they attract a business to come into the city, then for the first 3 years of that business in the city, they would get 15% of the Bradley Burn sales tax that we receive. And you can see on the void analysis, there's some estimates of what those sales tax numbers would be. So it gives you an idea of what that would be, and then you can calculate what their 15% of that would be. So what we're asking of the council tonight is to look at these, the recommendation of the Economic Advisory Committee, and then also you're welcome to look at any other businesses that were on the void analysis if there's something else that you would like to look at, and either confirm these businesses that we can pass on to HDL, or if you'd like to change some of those, not recommend some of those, we can do that also. So at this time, I'll invite you to look at those and do that. And I don't know, Barry, if you have anything to add to that, you're welcome to do that. But if not, we'll go back to council.
Would you like to say anything, Mr. Foster? We're delighted you're here tonight. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Barry Foster. I'm the managing director with HDL, and I manage the Econ Solutions division of our company. We started up the division about 4 years ago, and I have about 28 years of experience having worked for cities and then worked for the public or the private side for a number of years and started the division up. We've done work for probably 60 cities in California. We're currently doing work for about 30 or 32, and as the city manager said, a lot of those we do retail recruitment. We have a couple different ways we're compensated. We can either do an hourly rate, or we've also offered up, what we've offered up for Placerville is where we get a percentage. So we're not paid unless we attract something. And so while we don't promise anything, in this case, I don't get paid unless we bring something here. So we're going to try real hard to get some of those. And so I think the environment's improving, and we have a lot of analytical tools, software tools. We have very strong relationships with a number of the folks that are on those lists. And so hoping to leverage those opportunities to track some of those.
Great. Wonderful. Does the council have any questions at this point? No? I don't. All right. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Foster. Appreciate it. All right. At this time, I'd like to open up public comment on this item. Does any member of the public wish to comment? Hello again. Hi,
Susan Broadman, and in a former life I was an operations research analyst, and I have to say I'm not impressed. The 4 secondary ones are all fast food type restaurants. I don't think that's what we need any more of in Placerville. The upper 4, the only one I see that there might be actually a need in Placerville would be the Burlington Coat Factory. Most of these things provide stuff that's already here, already provided. I'm not sure if you would find enough business to actually support them. So I'm wondering, and I have to admit, I went through the gap analysis and the what's here and what's not here and all of the stuff, and I don't see it. I don't see it as a worthwhile thing to do. So that's my opinion.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? All right, we'll close the public comment and bring it back to the council for discussion and action. Councilmember Clarici.
Yeah. I tend to agree with Sue, not so much on the actual businesses, because I think trying to guess which businesses will come into town is a fool's errand. I think you create an environment that is good for business, and then business will come to your town. And it's an alchemy kind of thing. You get I mean, certainly if you look at some of these numbers, having an average household income of $73,000 is a good starting place. It means the folks that live in town, and I'm assuming maybe around the town, this demographic is similar to that, have some money, so they're likely to spend it. And you sort of see that in downtown right now, and in the other stores around town, is that the ones that provide a good service and a good value, they get used, and certainly the restaurants in town, and then Home Depot and places like that. I'm not sure how to feel about this. I think it's worth maybe, if it doesn't cost us anything, then there's nothing wrong with pursuing something. I'm just not sure. I don't know. You see this in Sacramento. You see this thing. The other thing, too, and I've noticed this, I looked at the void analysis here, and the one thing it occurred to me, and even, Five Guys is a really good hamburger, by the way. If you got one, you'd be really happy because they make a really good hamburger, but we already have a lot of really good hamburgers here in town. And what's that?
And peanuts.
Yes, exactly. I'm not one of these people, though, that says we have enough of those, because the market will decide how many you have, and then the market will make those things happen. And if you get too many, then one of them goes out of business, and that's what capitalism is. And so I'm not of the mind to sit there and say, well, we don't need this and we do need that, because that's what America is about, is deciding those things through markets and everything else. I am struck, though, by this list in the void analysis. We had a conversation back when we were talking about the on and off ramps to the freeway down there at Ray Lawyer Drive, and somebody said when they came into town, it was going to look like every place else. Now, I disagreed with them about the analysis of that, because building on and off ramps to an overcrossing is kind of what you do on a freeway, so it's not exactly like we were coloring too far out the lines with that particular project. But I thought it was well taken, and if you go to Anywhere USA, you're likely to find all these things. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be here. I'm sort of kind of going around in a circle, I imagine. But I don't know about these specific things. And I don't know if these are meant to be just sort of exemplars, like these are the kinds of things you might attract into your town, like a hamburger joint, or a chain hamburger store or something like that. Or these are the actual ones. My guess is that if the policy of the city was to go out and actually attract the specific businesses, we would have a lot of people at the podium saying, why are you doing this? Because then you do become Anywhere USA. And a certain amount of that's going to happen. If Five Guys, the corporation or the franchise, decides that here is where they're going to build one, unless you stop them, at some point they will build one here. That's why we have a McDonald's and we have an In-N-Out, because at some point those corporate entities and the groups that run them say, the numbers all add up, and that's how you end up with a Walmart on Missouri Flat Road. There's a calculus, and that's called capitalism. I think we should do some economic development, and we should have people out there throwing out feelers and making that happen. We have a couple of people here in the audience that are planning to do that if we come around to make that happen. Anyway, I'm kind of with Sue, sort of spiritually. I don't know about necessarily in the details. I wasn't particularly, when I saw that list of names, I'm going, yeah, that's great. And I do appreciate what the Peak did, because they're doing what we asked them to do once again. And this is not a dig or a reflection on what they did. This is the information that's brought to them. But you see this an awful lot. I'm just not sure where it'll go. Anyway, I'm torn on this right now.
All right. Thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Oh, no, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Borelli.
Okay, I have to say, I also somewhat agree with Sue's comments, and John as well. And maybe, and I have to apologize. I haven't read this total report, but I'm wondering, I see all these recommendations for more pizza places and fast food, and I just don't think we need any more. And I'm wondering if some of these recommendations, how you based it. Was it on the serving the population of 10,000, or was it based on maybe tourists coming in, or was it based on maybe the outlying little towns that we have surrounding us coming to patronize these?
First thing we did was looked at the market analytics, and there was a comment about the average household income level, and while 75,000 is a good number, the challenge that you've got is population density. And so when a retailer or a restaurant's looking at a trade area, they're looking for a number of things, including rooftops population, daytime population, average household income level, ethnic makeup, all those kinds of things, and looking to make a decision to come somewhere. The folks that we have on that list are folks that we work with that are national and regional players, and so that we're working with them all over the state. A lot of the folks that would be in your downtown are more the mom and pop folks, and we don't have relationships with those folks. And so it's not that, and I think you obviously have a thriving downtown, but we're looking more at the center down the street, trying to revitalize that, try to create some more pads and some opportunities with spaces there. Some of the things on Placerville Road, which is, those trade areas are very different and unique than downtown. And so that's what this is intended for. It's more shopping centers, neighborhood areas, those kinds of things. The downtowns are very difficult, or a very different animal, and I think obviously you have a lot of success there, but our retail recruitment actions would be more for those regional and national type users. In terms of the quick service and fast casual, and you don't have a lot of fast casual, that's the most dominant expanding restaurant concept in the United States, and especially in California right now. Sit-down restaurants, again, some of those more mom-and-pop restaurants are doing sit-down restaurants, but in terms of national and regional, it's more some quick service, but a lot of the fast casual. And again, the comment that the market kind of dictates that, and
That the what?
The market dictates whether they think that's a trade area they want to be in. So that's exploding, whether it's specialty pizza, specialty burgers, the Panera breads, the corner bakeries, the Chipotles. Those are examples of the fast casual concepts, and that's just rapidly expanding right now. But those are the types that would situate more in a shopping center like you see down the street to try to revitalize that. They tend not to go into downtowns because they see challenges with parking and other kinds of things. They want to see parking right outside the door.
Right.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Foster.
So, I'm just not, what I don't want to promote is more of the same thing and watch businesses fold. We don't need that, and I don't know. The shoe store, maybe, and Burlington Coat Factory, we don't have a lot of that. But I am concerned about, and I agree, there's nothing beats good service like competition. I mean, it really does. And I think people work harder when they have that particular thing. But I'm a little torn over this.
All right, thank you for your comments. Vice Mayor Kuna?
You've got the city manager and I plotting over here again. I would like to hear from Cleve because I was really happy to see that Peak took a look at this. And when we interviewed for a couple of vacancies earlier this year, there was some real genuine enthusiasm, and I think this is a first opportunity for the new group to really dig into something. Was there any reason in particular, Cliff? And I'm sure they would have had this same discussion.
Yes, they did. However, if I can, I'm going to defer to Mr. Rivas because the meeting when they considered this item, I couldn't make that meeting, and so he handled the meeting that day. So Pierre, can you comment on that?
Sure. I think the Peak scrutinized that list, and they decided they wanted to actually make a recommendation of 2 tiers. And so they had a first level tier where they came up with 4 businesses that they thought would be appropriate. And again, as the speaker pointed out, the focus wasn't Main Street. The focus was more on trying to improve the business climate in the Broadway area. And so they had those first 4 businesses that they looked at. And then they went ahead and said, well, maybe we'll go ahead and give the council a second tier, so that maybe if the council feels more inclined, they could sort of swap one for another. But that's sort of how they went about it. They just created those 2 separate lists. And so they wanted to provide the council a little more flexibility than maybe picking and choosing what businesses that we wanted to focus in. And that was probably about it.
Thank you, Pierre. And that's that's interesting, is if you look at the top 4, they're not really repeating anything that we already have. Because I share all of your concerns about fast casual. I like that. We've learned a new industry term. But do we bring something in that ultimately causes another vacancy, or disrupts the market, where we're not perfectly, but we have a competitive balance going on now, and they're competing against each other, and that's really not our place.
No.
That's the market to do that. That's the different, whether they be franchises or individual owners. That's the American spirit of being an entrepreneur. Got it out. But if you look, thank you, Pierre, because that really does kind of show what their thought processes were very similar to ours. And their concern was, gosh, we don't need to have 14 competing pizza parlors that are just draining away from each other. I appreciate the fact that they spent their time on this. And, I've had a little bit of a discussion with Cleve about whether we can fit one of these into an existing place. There are some square footage potentials out there. The Burlington Coat Factory, everybody says, we really don't. There's something we really don't have. There's something that would really, in the model, present a real new opportunity that we get that, thank you guys for putting that in, instead of, would you put another one of those? Comment.
And that's an interesting point, because, it's funny, I made mention of the fact that people said, well, we don't want our town to look the same. But these places exist because that's where people go to shop.
People go to shop.
And so it's kind of like, we don't want to have that here. But we want to drive to Folsom to go get it. And you're like, if you drive to Folsom, you're not helping anybody out up here. And maybe you need some of that here. And like I said, I don't want to quibble about these exact businesses, because I don't know if any
there
of
might
these
be
will
others.
work.
There might be others,
Right, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not going to be horrible if that comes here.
No, none of
look
these.
at Home Depot.
My wife, I'll tell you right now, we got a DSW shoes.
Me too.
That may never
And you're
leave
going there.
Placerville.
I may have to go back to
Stay here.
full-time work if that happens.
Yeah, I
Serious.
forget that.
So do you want?
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So let's let Vice Mayor Cunha finish his.
I'm sorry.
No, I agree. Their contributions to the discussion are welcome, because they're right on the same target.
We're having a round table.
Yeah, I think the concept is right, and I think that staff and the consultant understand what we want. I have to say this because everybody always wants a Trader Joe's.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, our consultant goes.
That's not going to happen.
But let me finish though. At Trader Joe's, if we qualified for a Trader Joe's, this community would not look like this, and it wouldn't live like this.
Correct.
So we maybe don't really want a Trader Joe's, or at least because it would mean a tremendous change in our community. So there'd be lots more population.
A lot of people wouldn't go to Folsom.
We'd have a lot of rooftops here.
I'll tell you right now, if I could get a Trader Joe's, I might wrestle with that.
Yeah, my wife would be very pleased with that one too.
I love the TJ.
That's just a classic. I've heard that for my whole entire career. Man, why can't you guys get a Trader Joe's?
And I'd like to mention just one more thing.
Because it's not going to happen.
One more thing about the market and everything else. One of the things that came into town, that quite honestly, if it hadn't come to town, we would have closed our doors a long time ago, and that is Home Depot.
Yep.
Now, there's no doubt that Home Depot had an impact on some businesses in town, and we could go and look at the empty storefronts that happened. But it also brought a ton of other kinds of opportunity that people don't necessarily, and not just the tax revenue that comes in, but also there are now countless contractors and other businesses that here, because of the Home Depot, they actually service things through the Home Depot. So, it's easy to sit there and talk about, and I don't know where something like the Burlington Coat Factory or any of these fall in terms of the box sizey things. I think these are probably medium-sized boxes or small boxes. I don't know where they
range.
They range. They would have an impact, but there are also opportunities that come because they exist. And so, and once again, if the numbers work, those are the kinds of things that come to town.
come.
And the reason, anyway, so I don't think we need to fear the Burlington Coat Factory, if they're scary or not, but, don't fear them.
I don't think we need to fear
Well,
anything.
any other comments, Mark?
No.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, I'd like to offer my comments on this. And we've been talking I've been on the council 8 years now, and for the last 8 years, we've been talking economic development. And there hasn't been a big boom in economic development. And now our downtown is thriving, folks are doing very, very well, but we've not had a concentrated effort on economic development. And as we had our goal-setting workshop this year with staff, that was our number one priority, if I recall. And I have a few different thoughts that business doesn't just come. The retail game has changed. 10, 15 years ago, if you had a storefront and you had a decent property, you put a sign up for rent and you'd get, calls every which way till Sunday. And you put it up now and it sits there.
Crickets.
And so it's not just a matter of having an empty space anymore. The retail game has changed, and that takes targeted efforts. And retailers such as this, and and I certainly hear my council members' comments, and I agree. We don't want to be anywhere USA. We're all very proud of our uniqueness. However, we are 3 separate business districts, and that means that there is room for a mixture of things. And I think it's telling that as we went through our city budget process, that In-N-Out is one of our top 10 sales tax generators. And so, like it or not, In-N-Out makes a huge difference to the revenue of our city. So there are and it wouldn't be such a sales tax generator if folks didn't patronize it and love it in our community. So I think that's telling. Also, this list that was generated is based on gaps that we have here. Gaps that folks right here are buying right now, but they're going somewhere else for it. So it's not just, pie in the sky numbers. It's not just picking retailers out of a hat. It's based on data, and data is driving retail now. And so I think, we've been asking for this for a long time, and certainly with this model where HDL is willing to partner with us and, go out and do the recruitment, because it takes that nowadays. And then they get paid if they're successful, if they can find a good fit, a good property, a good place in town that our community will welcome, that our planning commission will welcome, then that's a win-win. So I am all for this proposal as laid out. I think we have nothing to lose because the community and the market, and we have a planning commission in place, we have processes in place that make sure that whatever is attracted that sees potential in our town will fit in our town. And we've certainly, as my fellow council members have noted, with the Home Depot and some of the other retailers, that it can work. So I'm not afraid of it, and we've been asking for it. I say let's do it. And so with that, I make a motion that we authorize the city manager to enter into agreement as recommended by staff.
I will second that.
All right.
I'll yield my second to Councilmember Wilkins.
All right, and so roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clerici?
Aye.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
All right. Well, Mr. Foster, we look forward
Go
to
get 'em.
seeing what you come up with.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And don't give up on the Trader Joe's. Okay, all right.
We can keep dreaming, right?
He already shook his head no.
Yeah.
That's an interesting fact, though. Think about how we would change if we had that.
Well, that's a good point.
We might not like.
Do you know how many times I have been to Trader Joe's and asked them to please come to Placerville?
hear it all
And
the
they all look at me and say, "Do you know how many people come to me and say please move?" And they all laugh.
Oh, well, keep asking, Patty. Keep asking.
Yep.
All right, item 12.2, review and obtain public comment on a proposed measure for the November ballot to impose a tax on cannabis businesses in the city of Placerville. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, at a previous meeting, you appointed Council Members Clerici and Vice Mayor Acuna to work on a subcommittee with staff to move this forward in looking at regulating cannabis businesses in the city of Placerville. As we mentioned at that meeting, the first step in that process, because of the timeline, is to prepare a tax ordinance And we have a draft that we received from HDL. As you recall, we are working with them also. Not this HDL person, a different HDL person, by the way. I don't know that Barry would have been able to answer the questions for us on this one, but they provided a draft which we went through, myself, Mr. Driscoll, and the committee looked at. We had some questions that we went through. Mr. Driscoll and I had a phone call with David McPherson, who we work with HDL, earlier this week, or was it last week? Last week, I guess, wasn't it? This week. Anyway, we had that conversation.
You had a conversation.
And we got our answers to our questions, and we feel pretty comfortable with this for the most part as a model going forward. The numbers that you see are explained in my staff report, and they're in the resolution also. Just quickly, the main one that we've talked about is the retail side. And that is proposed at 4%, but it's also have a maximum number in there that would go up to 6%, that future councils could determine that it could go higher if the need was there and they felt it was appropriate to do so. But it would be established at 4% in the beginning. This ordinance does actually show taxes for all cannabis businesses, all the way from cultivation to manufacturing. I want to emphasize this does not mean that we are going to legalize all of those businesses, but this puts the tax in place should at some time in the future another council or even this council decide we think we should allow this type of business. The tax will already be in place, assuming this is approved by the voters in November. This will have to go on on the ballot. To get on the ballot, it will have to be on your council meeting on July 10th for approval. And then the county has told us as long as we get it to them by July 11th, the next day, that it will make the ballot and it will be fine. Gives time for the arguments for and against and all of the information that needs to go into a ballot measure. So what is before you tonight is simply for you to consider this tax measure, not to vote on it, not to make any real recommendations, but we will take your input if you have further input. Also wanted to get input from the public if they have any questions, comments, concerns with this measure, proposed measure. We can take that input. We will then go back and discuss it with the subcommittee, with HDL, and come up with a final recommended document that we will bring back on July 10th for your approval and recommendation. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Councilman.
Excellent. First of all, I would like to thank Councilmember Clarici, that's a tongue twister, and Vice Mayor Acuna for serving on this committee with our staff. Really appreciate your time and attention to this. And once again, I'd like to highlight this is a financial mechanism where, like our city manager explained, we're not approving any types of businesses or flushing the business regulation out, but we're looking at the financial mechanism for this issue. Does council have any questions at this time?
No questions.
Not right
No? All right. I'd like to open it up to the public. Would anyone like to speak on this item? Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor, council members. Rod Miller, El Dorado County Growers Alliance. We're one of the few industries that supports taxing ourselves, so we support this measure. The one provision that allows for the tax for you all to adjust the tax downward, I think, is very positive. It's something that you potentially could use to negotiate in the future with businesses. I would recommend, just from what I'm learning from the county's activity in this area, that there's a potential initiative on the November ballot that would require general taxes that pass during the year 2018 to meet the 2/3 requirement, and there's some specific language that initiative would require. So I'd recommend that you include it in this tax measure, such that if you get a 2/3 vote on this measure and it has that language, then and that initiative passes, then you're good to go. Also, I'm encouraged that you have the manufacturing tax in here, because there's some low impact non-volatile manufacturing that the county's kind of ignored that may be an economic opportunity for the city. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Appreciate your comments. I see notes are being taken up here. Thank you. Hello again.
Hello again. Kelly Chisano, representing Pure Life Collective in Diamond Springs. So I was able to read through the text, and as Rod said, we're for being taxed, and we know that helps in the relationship and securing an environment for both sides of both sides, for us as a new business and for the security of the community, so that people feel that the education and the police and all those types of things that need to be addressed are addressed. I also agree in the adjusting sliding scale being a good way to go. It doesn't, the county, and I know I saw Mr. Morris at the county's meeting, so he was privy to that information as well. The county did a large scale. It was like 1% to 15%. So they're very, gives them a lot of flexibility. Their whole ordinance is very flexible. So on that, I would, just recommend keeping flexibility as a thing in there because it helps everybody. The 2/3 vote, I know that we've heard before that if we do a 2/3 vote, if we can't, that funds can be specifically earmarked if it's a 2/3 vote. So I'm wondering if since this ballot measure might be coming down the line anyways, to require 2/3 vote, it behoove us to do a 2/3 vote initially with earmarked funds, so that since we might be needing to meet that requirement in, at the same time anyways, this way, if it does pass with 66%, it's going to education, police, whatever it is that it specifically you would all like to see it, where you'd like to see it going, and having more control rather than a general fund. Kind of a weird anomaly that it all came down on the same election, but and then the only concern I really have with the proposed information is it seems like a lot of information for voters, and this is something that we talked about in the county's thing, because I know that you as the council can't promote the ballot measure once it's put in. All you can do is put it in, and then representing parties or interests that feel that it's a good measure or not can represent it either way. I'm just concerned that if with the length that's there, including all these industries that we're not looking at, not to say that that's not a good idea because it protects us down the road. We don't have to re-vote as we want to add new businesses to the community. But if there's some that you're really considering it's not going to work in demographically, maybe we don't put all of those into this first ballot measure, and then as we grow, then my whole thing with the county and with everyone is trying to take everything at baby steps so that we don't overstep ourselves, and that we don't put so much information, someone reads it and it's opposing and thinks, oh, they're just going to turn the city upside down with cannabis industry, and there's going to be manufacturing and growing and retail, and I might be okay with the medicinal side of this, but now they're they're thinking it's going to be LA or San Francisco. So that's my concerns. Again, I'm open for consulting or any help, and thank you guys for keeping us a part of this.
Right. Thank you very much, Kelly. Appreciate your comments. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here, Mayor, Council. I'm Matt Vaughn, Medical Marijuana Caregivers Association of El Dorado County. Looking through the HDL's proposal there, one of the things I researched was the canopy tax. And HDL has consulted all around the state, and they've started with some really high canopy tax numbers, and they've been coming down. And what we have here, $7 indoor, is pretty reasonable according to the way the numbers are going. But what happens is the canopy tax creates a upfront on a grow situation. So there's a lot of problems that can happen the first year of starting a grow, the cultivation. What they're seeing, Monterey County was an early adopter with HDL, and so they're looking at scaling it back and giving it 5 years of scaling the canopy tax up so that the cultivating can get going without having to dump You know, if a micro business is 10,000 square feet of canopy, $7 a square foot, that's $70,000 out the gate to hope you're going to grow something. So there are people that have that money. They might not be here, but they're going to jump on us. Other places, other counties, cities have done this, and it squeezes out the locals just right away. So just ramping up the canopy tax would be a consideration. The city of Monterey, or Monterey County is looking at that, and just make that part of the consideration. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Appreciate those comments. Would anyone else like to speak on this item? Hello again, Sue.
Sue Rodman, Placerville resident. I think that Kelly had some very good points, because it seems to me like in the last couple of years we've addressed this and said that we were not going to allow growing facilities within the city limits of Placerville. And yet I read this, and it has, like he said, everything from growing to processing to retail and I'm among those people. I'm okay with medical marijuana. I'm not okay with grows inside the city limits. So when this comes up for a ballot measure, I'll vote no, because it's too general and too wide, and it allows things that I don't think we want to have, and things that we've already discussed and said we weren't going to do. So that's my input.
Great comments. Thank you so much. Anyone else? Well, really appreciate all your comments. That'll certainly help direct our committee as they continue to work with this issue. Thank you so much. Does council have any further comments or questions?
I'm not sure that we're still not full. I don't think we're fully understanding this. Would you say it again about this as a tax issue? And I want to address specifically what Sue just said. She's going to vote against it because we're not. So that might be the opinion of a lot of people. So I would like to be more precise in what is really.
Right, and Sue does have a good point. I agree somewhat with her. You know, somebody sees on here, you know, that we're going to tax cultivation, which we have had some discussion about whether or not we are going to allow cultivation if it's appropriate within our small city. And so that is a risk that you have, in that somebody may look at that and say, just on the tax measure, so it would require a lot of education once we adopt our business regulation ordinance to say, these are the only things that we are going to allow. Now, the tax measure allows everything to be taxed that might happen, but these are the only things that the business
regulation. But we're not going to put all this on a ballot. I mean, all these.
No, not all this that's on here. John and I are working on a resolution that will actually define the ballot question, and it's similar to what you saw the last time we had our sales tax measure. There's a ballot question that says, should we tax these items? Now, there are some money items involved there that we need to be aware of. And John will tell me what we have to put in that ballot question and what we may not have to put in it. So, but it can get confusing, because if you say you're taxing all of these things, some people that are not educated about what this process has been are going to start thinking, I don't want cultivation in my backyard.
Correct.
Or I don't want manufacturing.
It's very confusing.
So there is that potential if that comes up that way. So it's, you know, so there's it's kind of a mixed bag. I mean, you want that ability to tax if at some time it does come up. So, for example, you know, 10 years down the road, different era, different council says, let's allow cultivation to come in, or let's allow manufacturing, or whatever it may be. At that point, you wouldn't, if you take that out, you would not have the ability to tax it without going back again to the voters.
And we don't know what the future of the market holds.
We do not. True.
And like I think it was brought up several times that we don't want to allow anybody to be able to usurp us.
Right.
So this way we have our own ability to have something and control it.
Right.
So if the folks didn't want us to have growth, like or to have then they would come to the city council, right? And because we would be voting on that.
Correct.
So that's where.
Whether or not you're going to
whether
allow
we're going to,
cultivation
what
in
we're
the
going to
area.
allow, right?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it does make sense, though, to have our tax measure mirror our business regulations and what we're intending to do as a city, which we have not fleshed out yet.
Right.
And gosh, maybe have future councils, if they decide to expand that, then deal with that tax consequence then. So it's not confusing to the voters. I don't know. I'm going to break a little bit because I saw one of our constituents running from his house to come down here and comment. So I'm going to open public comment up one more time. Mr. No, would you like to address this council in this item?
Yes, please.
All right. Thanks for coming down.
Hi, Steve No, Placerville. Understand that this is just an item for the taxing on marijuana. And I know you're pushing for a 2/3 vote. So if you don't get the vote, do you not get the pot? So that one, I mean, you got to, if it takes 2 more officers or 3 more officers, the tax better cover it or it's not worth it. I mean, all the problems that are caused that are going to happen, because they are going to happen, just like alcohol, you need enforcement. And he needs more officers to cover it. So the tax has got to be there, or else it's not worth it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else, since I've opened public comment, that hasn't spoken? Okay, all right, I'll close public comment, bring that back.
Yeah, maybe John and I can address that if you'd like to.
Yeah, I'd like for you to discuss the community benefit portion and the
Right.
option.
We
Yes.
looked at that community benefit measure that we would put in the business regulation ordinance. And so there's a couple of options you have here. One option, and we'll be discussing that as part of the business regulation ordinance, would be simply say it only becomes effective if the tax measure passes. You could do that. And then if the tax measure doesn't pass, it goes away. That is an option that you have, and some cities have done that. The other option is to include this community benefit provision. And then if the tax measure does not pass, you put that in as part of your application process, and the business that comes in would propose what their community benefit would be. And it may be a percentage, it may be a flat dollar, there's a number of ways it could be done, but they would designate it as for this, and it's for this community benefit.
And would that be a contract basically with that business in the city?
Yes, basically, yeah.
Yeah, Cleve pretty much indicated what I was going to say. The process is comprised of several steps. One is when you adopt the regulations, is it going to be contingent on the tax measure passing or not?
Okay.
That's one decision you'll have to make. It can be or it doesn't have to be. The city of El Cerrito didn't even do a tax measure. They just used in their regulations a provision in the application process that provides that the applicant must produce some sort of a community benefit program, in which case I believe one of the applicants there proposed that they'd give like 4 or 5% of their gross receipts. They also limited, I don't believe they have cultivation, I think they limited it to certain activities, and it wasn't widespread, such as cultivation, manufacturing, etc. But that's a decision that you're going to be making down the line. The ordinance that HDL drafted for the tax measure is broad because they wanted to give the council, future councils, the ability, as has been stated tonight, to impose a tax on any aspect of commercial marijuana business, whether it's cultivation, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's testing, whether it's just retail sales, even if you don't necessarily allow that. Now, I understand what everybody's saying. Is the average voter going to put 2 and 2 together, or are they going to think because that's on the ballot for the tax measures, those are the uses that are being allowed? There's a real difficulty there. But that is why they put it on there. Oh, there's one other reason, which is I thought kind of humorous because I'm not sure it would really work. And that is if somebody, let's say you don't allow cultivation. Somebody goes ahead and starts cultivating, then they're still liable for the tax even though they're not doing it legally.
Oh my gosh.
Are you really going to be able to collect it from them? I doubt it. But anyways, that was another reason that they gave us for putting that on there. With regard to the 2/3, we'll probably know by Thursday of this week.
Okay.
Because there's stuff going on in Sacramento right now. There's some horse trading going on
I
to
read
try
about
and
it.
keep that off of the ballot. And if they're successful in doing that, then that's not going to be an issue.
Okay.
So we'll
great.
know that by Thursday.
All right. So this issue is fluid, like our budget. I know this is just a review and provide direction. Does council have any other further direction for our esteemed committee? Yes. Councilmember.
I'm not a council member. No,
Councilmember
thank you.
Morris.
No, thank you.
He does not
I just
want
want to
this
make one
job.
comment, and I agree with everything you said and the confusion. The difficult task is we're not going to know what to put in that tax measure
that's
by
true.
July 10th.
That's true.
Because we have not gone through that business regulation process. So that creates a
that's true.
quandary for us in that process of trying to decide what to pull out. Now, your subcommittee can, if you would like them to, they can recommend that we pull certain things out of the taxing ordinance, and we can consider that. But I just want to mention that's the difficult task we have right now is we're not going to know till probably September what we decide to do in terms of regulating businesses.
Well, yeah.
I just hate to tie the hands of the future because we have no idea what this business is going to bring. Look what's happened in the last year, actually, or two, how it's all coming to
It's
the
trending.
forefront. And I hate to tie the hands of our future councils and government.
Well, if we have a decision in time for when I put my opinion, my analysis of it, if anybody bothers to read it, we can explain what is being allowed and what isn't being allowed, regardless of what the ordinance says. But that would be the only opportunity, I think, to really clarify it at all. And like
Just
I
so
say,
we can
people would have to
clarify
at
it
least want to
and-
read that.
I do think that as we've wrestled with this as a council, we've all been pretty resolute that no outdoor cultivation makes sense in our city.
Well, we're not thinking
Yeah.
of it,
I mean,
but who knows what might be.
well, they could let that future councils address this.
let them
happen.
take
Unless,
care of it.
unless they some point in the future genetically engineer marijuana that doesn't smell like skunks,
No, that's good happen.
then and that is probably happening as we speak as well. Excuse me. I've never been too sanguine about the tax side of this. It's never been my focus at all. In fact, I would love to be able to take care of all of this money stuff through the regulatory process and folks coming in and making permits and getting the benefit thing and not even dealing with the tax bill at all. I would like to get the same benefit and make it part of the business plan. I think that will get you a better product in the long run if you sit down and negotiate with the people that are, if we approve this at some point in the future, of getting it. And then future councils don't have to mess around with the tax. They can come in and say, oh, you want to, say I don't see cultivation being a thing we're going to do right out of the chute. That's just my gut. My gut tells me, I may be wrong, but of any stripe, indoor or outdoor. It'll be a major thing to get any kind of sales out in front of the folks, I think. So, but, in 3 or 4 or 5, 10 years, who knows? Maybe all of a sudden the folks will go, oh, this wasn't so bad. Mr. No may find out that, the things that we thought were going to go bad didn't go bad, and we don't have a huge problem, and this is something that a community can live with. I would love to have a future city council say, great, let's start looking at indoor cultivation. Let's start looking at micro businesses. Let's start looking at all that stuff and not do it through, this.
But are you looking to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, ask the
Are
question.
you looking to close the door right now on
No.
the indoor? And the,
No. I'm not saying that at all. My gut tells me certain things. My guts have been known to be wrong. But what I'm saying is that I was never very sanguine on the tax side of this anyway. It's never been the way I wanted to lead. It just seems like that's what other communities are doing. But then you find out there's communities that don't follow this model, and they may be more successful in this thing. And we can extract our pound of flesh at some point. There seem to be fairly eager to do these things, if in fact we decide that this is something we want to pursue. So I think we should continue down this road with this particular thing because we don't know what's going to happen at the legislature, and we should be prepared. What I would hate, though, to have happen, I can understand the confusion side. I actually have a lot more faith in voters. I think that they can navigate things, and I think they can walk and chew gum. And I think we could probably sit there and say, you know, there's a tax measure. It doesn't mean we're okaying everything. Now, there will be people that will go out and say, you see, they're doing this. It's kind of like they're tearing down the Druid Monument. You know, it'll be the same kind of functional equivalency. And there will be folks that don't, you know, that don't ask the question, and then they'll say, fine. But I have faith in voters that we can, well, we won't do it, but folks will do it, that'll be able to roll information in front of people, that they will be able to, you know, separate the regulatory side from the taxing side. And to that point, what you don't want to have people necessarily thinking is, oh, if we can defeat this tax, that means we're not going to do this thing. And that would also be as equally fallacious, because that's not the truth. The city could continue on down this road.
John. That's a good point.
And we don't want that to be out there as well. So
That's a good point.
we need to sort of, I think we need to pursue this, because it needs to be done in case we decide to go down this road. I personally think we could do it through the regulatory arm, and I would also like to see that get as much, and it is getting our attention of staff, and then the committee can look at that as well. So anyway, my thoughts.
I, for one, would be open to that, to doing it through the community benefit, and I look forward to, you know, you guys wrestling with it with our staff and looking at those other models and see what makes sense for us. I think everyone has had really good comments.
A couple of comments. I want to thank Cleve and John Driscoll for all the work that they have put into this. They have read volumes of other communities' ordinances some are in very fluid state. They're getting daily updates on some of these things, and there's a lot of data that they're going through on the community's behalf. So thank you very much. And we are trying to be, all four of us are trying to be as time sensitive as we can be, while we're also being very cognizant of the big community question about what do we want to do as a community, and what can we do to make sure that any parts of this particular business are best suited today and in the future to benefit and cause minimal impacts and get fair contributions if there are any impacts from this operation. That said, I think, John, you hit upon a very good observation, and that is there's going to be a certain amount of voters that are going to think, well, if I vote no on this, then the city's going to shut this whole thing down. And they're not tied together. And so I was listening, and I'm thinking, well, okay, maybe we don't want to go to the tax model, because it might be simpler to do it in the business ordinance and using the community benefit model, because it gives us about the same abilities to get money to address community concerns. So that still, I think, needs to be explored, but I think we need to finish what we started. One thing I would suggest is, and it sounds like the county has very wisely given themselves and their successors, I think it was 1 to 15%, because I could see somebody sitting up here going, what in the world were they thinking at 6? And in my notes I had 4 to 8%, as just a matter of fact. So I'm thinking that we probably want to broaden that out, because again, we have no idea what this is going to be. And when competition starts to happen, the numbers may drop, and this council may say, oh man, we need to collect more money on this, and their hands are going to be tied. So we can either follow the county or we can come up with our own little number, but I think we need to increase the range.
So do we need a motion on this? No. All right. So do you all feel you have the direction you need?
Yes,
to proceed?
we're directed.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you. We look forward to
I try not to direct myself.
seeing your recommendations on this. And thank you all for your good, excellent comments. We appreciate it. All right. Item 12.3, we're paving Canal Street.
All
Can I
right.
get a hallelujah?
Yay.
Yes. So adopt a resolution approving a paving construction.
I move the
contract.
recommendation to.
Second.
So Mr. Rivas?
I bet it's not going to be.
No, it's not. Ms. Neves, good evening.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor Acuna, and members of the council. It's staff's honor to present this item before you as the first CIP construction contract award of the 2018-2019 fiscal year, Canal Street Pavement Rehabilitation Project. The proposed contract before you this evening will rehabilitate the roadway from B Street intersection to Cougar Lane on Canal Street, directly in front of the El Dorado High School. At its regularly scheduled meeting on May 17, 2018, the Measure HL Committee approved a recommendation for this project to City Council, along with $180,000 budget appropriation and Measure L funds prior to receipt of bids. Local contractors were all solicited, and only a single bid was received on June 18, 2018, in excess of the budgeted appropriation, and it was determined additional funds would be needed in order to fund the paving contract. For various reasons, it was outlined in staff's report as to why the prices have been increasing, but we've been seeing a very steady increase in bid prices. Since the request before you this evening is greater than the original estimated amount, staff is recommending utilization of the Measure L Fund operating reserve to fully fund the delivery of this project. The reserve was established for such unforeseen project expenditures like these. Time is of the essence to deliver this project prior to school resuming following summer break. I received an updated start date from the contractor today that they would be starting on July 18th. We'd hoped that they'd start 1 week earlier, but they had a project run a little late. Subsequent to publication of the staff report, city staff also met with the El Dorado Union School District Superintendent yesterday afternoon, and they are interested in partnering on the project to address the degraded median fencing and K-rail currently located within the city's right-of-way with a tube steel fencing. This will be brought forward as a separate reimbursable contract at the next City Council meeting. Staff's recommendations are summarized in the report before you this evening, and that concludes my verbal report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you so much. And I had the privilege of sitting in a meeting with Vice Mayor Acuna and our staff with the high school, and it was a privilege to see our department head and Rebecca and all of our staff in action on this item. And I'll tell you, we have an amazing staff, and seeing the partnership with a high school and working with them to really meet this critical need in our community and address the dire conditions of Canal Street in a very short window of time when the high school is not in operation. It was an amazing thing, and just to commend our staff for all their work on this. And this is so exciting to see our Measure L funds used in this way in a project that will get so much traction and attention, and it's just a dire need in our community. So I commend our staff for their excellent work here. Yes. Yes.
They'll have excellent direction.
Any comments or questions by council?
Question. What's the anticipated number of construction days?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So 10 working days.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was just really happy to hear about the fence, the added, that's going to really add.
Yes, the contract that you're actually awarding doesn't include the fencing, and it was beyond an awardable amount to include it per public contract code restrictions. But when we brought this to the attention of the school district, Cleve reached out to the superintendent, and he came forward and said, absolutely, we're going to discuss this with the board and move forward. So it was very, very positive.
Good for them.
Really
Yes.
Collaborative project.
Yeah.
I love that. That's wonderful. All right. Open public comment. Sue, come on down. I know you want to talk about this. We all want to talk about this.
This one is why I'm still here.
Yeah.
Sue Rodman, chairman of the Measure H, Measure L committee this year. Hooray. Congratulations to Rebecca and to everybody who met with the school board. And this was number one on my list of when we went through which roads in Placerville do you think you really, really got to do? Canal Street was my number one. And so I'm glad to see that we're going to do this, and I'm really happy that the school district is going to pitch in and do that, get rid of those K-rails, because that is but ugly.
It's not very pretty, is it?
No. So, hooray.
Amen.
I thought we did a hallelujah out of her.
Eric, you want to talk about this? No. All right. We'll close public comment then. Bring it back to the council for action.
I'll go ahead and make a motion if there's to
All
approve
right.
the item.
So we're talking money. So roll call, please.
Is there a second?
Vice Mayor Acuna?
Go.
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Councilmember Clarici?
Aye.
Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
All right, let's get paving.
Excuse, Mayor, I'd
Thank
like
you,
to make
Rebecca.
I'd
Yes.
like to make comment.
Absolutely.
You know, when Joe Volek called me several months ago now, and we stood out in front of Canal Street, and it's obvious it looks like a third world country out there. I told him that we would do this, and then I felt like, oh my gosh, I might have said something I shouldn't have, but I told him we're going to do this, and then the principal was there. And it's just gratifying that with staff's diligent work that we have managed to bring this forward. And the fence thing is really, Rebecca, you know, we had a nice meeting up on the 4th floor several months ago about this, kind of laying it all out, and mentioned that, you know, the K-rail is, yeah, it's pretty, you know, it's functional, but it's not great. And, you know, she just had these great ideas. And then the high school just seized on it. And so it's really quite remarkable. So I'm very happy that we've actually been able to do this. And we are, though, going to have to do a little education, because we're going to have to explain to people why we're not doing the rest of Canal Street. And because that'll come up, and you know, and there's obviously financial and then very good fiscal and physical reasons why we're not doing the other parts of Canal Street. And they don't need as much love as that one section there in front of the two schools. But, you know, we will have to do that. We'll have to say, you know, we're not doing this piece because of something, or we're not doing that piece. But that is part of this bigger picture, whatever the heck it turns out to be. So anyway, I'm just happy that we're able to do this, and no one made me a liar.
And thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Are they still gonna put the speed bumps in?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That is a safety measure. They're putting in permanent asphalt speed bumps as opposed to the stick down
Then
ones.
those rubber,
Right.
whatever those are, yeah. Oh, that's good, I'm glad to
Right.
hear that.
And to speak to Councilmember Clarici's point, number one, thank you, and it's always a team effort. It's never one person. But just because we aren't paving all of Canal doesn't mean we won't get to it. You know, our city is a 165-year-old house that's a fixer-upper, and we love her dearly. And so we will do one little home improvement project at a
I
time.
love that. That is a great analogy.
Great analogy.
This
Thank you.
is the do-it-yourself network.
We'll
I
see
love that.
Rebecca
And John,
on-
thank you for hanging
thank you,
yourself by
John.
the tongue and starting this ball rolling. And
Can you go stand on another street and say, we're going to do this? Spring Street would be fine. I'd be happy to have you
Thanks
out.
for
I'll
getting the
drive
ball
you out.
rolling, John.
The only reason we're doing this is because we got money. Otherwise, we'd be just talking, you know, flapping our gums on this thing. So, I mean, ultimately, you have to thank the voters of Placerville
Hell yes.
for being smart and actually doing something. Now we've got some money to do some fun stuff.
That's right. All right, love it. Council reports. Transit.
We haven't had any
No, we
meetings.
haven't. No meetings. Anyone had any meetings they want to talk about?
Nope.
No, all right.
Actually, no, I do.
All right.
Briefly, I had a SACOG meeting, and we're talking about housing, and it was dreadfully boring. I mean, it was dreadfully boring.
thanks.
And it was. We had this workshop, and they brought in some really smart people, and it was awful.
Oh, dear.
I mean, it was awful. I think they'll eventually get to a place where the meeting and what they're talking about will actually be useful. But the beginning of it was just like, okay, fine. It was, yeah. Anyway, but otherwise, SACOG was great.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, I'm sure glad to
Your
hear
awful
that.
meeting. All right, city manager and staff reports. First of all, any other council members wish to have any other agenda items come up?
No.
All right, city manager and staff reports.
I don't think any of staff, anyone has anything. I just want to mention quickly, it's been a while since we've talked about the Johnson Controls project, our solar project, our lighting and HVAC project. I want to let you know we're currently working on looking at a CEC loan, California Energy Commission loan. They have 1% loans available. And we're looking at that for the lighting and HVAC projects. So we're working on that right now. Johnson Controls is looking at working their numbers to fit what is needed for that application. That will be on your next agenda, the resolution to allow us to apply for that loan. And then on the SRF loan, we've kind of taken a different route. We were going down this route where we were looking at the green project loan, which would have provided 50% forgiveness. We then did some analysis, and we determined that we fit the disadvantaged community category, which put us into a different function. Fortunately, the work we've already done will still qualify, but it's our understanding now that this will even be a greater benefit than the 50% forgiveness loan would have been. We don't know exactly what that is yet. I have a meeting with them on July 9th or 10th, I forget which, to talk about that and figure out where that might go. So you'll see those two kind of hopefully ramping up again, those projects.
Just curious, why do we qualify disadvantage for this program, but we haven't for the other one? Different.
Well, different agencies look at it differently. This is based on median household income. But,
okay, the
that's
other,
how they,
okay, yeah.
So.
That's a difference.
You know what? We're not going to ask them why.
Always hard to know.
I wanted to know, just curious, because we were so disappointed that we didn't get that other one because we thought we were disadvantaged. They didn't.
Trader Joe's thinks we are. All right. Well, thank you for updating us, and we look forward to that coming back to us. All right. With that, we have a whole bunch of things on our July 10th meeting. We'll see what fleshes out. And so for that, we will see you at 5:30 on July 10th. Happy 4th of July, and have a safe and happy holiday.
Thursday.
Oh, and Thursday. We'll see you at the mixer at the Chamber of Commerce mixer at Gold Bug Park. Look forward to that. Good night.